I just finished watching the Amazing Digital Circus's final episode, and I have a lot of notes on the finale. But after watching the finale, I decided to go back and rewatch the whole show as a whole, and I started to feel a little bit disturbed by how, is this just me, or is the show weirdly misogynistic? And I'm not saying this as someone who's hating the show or anything. The show does have a lot of incredible moments, incredible fighting at times, but when you actually look at how the female characters are handled in contrast to the main male character, that being Jax, then you start to notice just how weird everything is. And to be fair, this isn't going to be a hate on the show video. This is mainly just me talking about my honest opinions on the show and how it handles its characters as a whole, mainly with how it portrays Jax versus all the other female characters. So let's get into it. So I feel like that the one thing we do need to establish is that Jax is supposed to be the bully character in the show. He's immediately introduced straight up bullying Pomni, the protagonist, when she gets into the circus. And while Jax may not straight up be as bad at first, when you start to watch more of the episodes, you start to notice a pattern with who Jax targets in the show. His main target is of course Gangle, who is confirmed to be a female, and we also later see that he also targeted Ragatha a lot, quite a lot, because she is in fact the heart, she is the foundation of this group. And whilst this isn't necessarily targeted towards women, that's not what the point was, you start to notice just how problematic it seems on paper. Now, Gangle is Jax's main victim. She is in fact the main target of who Jax bullies throughout the show, and the way that Jax treats Gangle in the show is actually really disturbing when you actually look a lot deeper into it. For example, he constantly tries to threaten her with information about her sexuality or what she did with the anime figure, which just seems completely wrong for him to do, because it's just straight up wrong for him to be threatening and blackmailing someone that badly, because Gangle is mentally and physically incapable of fighting back against Jax. And it's clearly obvious that Gangle is straight up terrified of Jax. In the gun episode, when she chooses to team up with Zubul over Jax, she's actually really scared over what Jax will do to her once the adventure is over, but Zubul becomes a good friend and just sticks up for her. This does kind of just prove just how badly Jax treats Gangle, and if we're being completely honest here, if Zubul wasn't around, Gangle would probably 100% get abstracted. And the same could also be said for Ragatha too. The only reason why she probably never got abstracted was because she was always looking out for the other members of the group. Because the way Jax treats Ragatha at times is straight up diabolical. He constantly keeps hurting her, insulting her, and trying to get her to get upset over him. And it's just seeing just how badly he treats both Ragatha and Gangle, and how this has been going on for years, just makes Jax's behavior seem really suspicious on how he mainly only targets the women in the group. Then Pomni arrives, and he basically in a way just emotionally manipulates her. In the gun episode, he spends the first half of the episode being nice to her, trying to convince her to act more like him. But the second that they finish playing the game, he immediately starts ghosting her and tells her that he wouldn't care if she abstracted. This is straight up emotional manipulation, the way that Jax handles and treats Pomni here. And the way that he just goes from being nice to her to being awful to her, it straight up is just such problematic behavior, and it's just so bad. And I know what a lot of people are probably wondering, why does this seem misogynistic? Well, the main reason why is because Jax is a male character, and he is in fact targeting and bullying all of the female characters in the group. Now, I know that the majority of the main cast are women, so this kind of has more to do with the cast than anything else. But it's a little bit suspicious how, Kinga, he's a guy, but, he's mentally insane. So Jax doesn't target Kinga because he is, in fact, already insane. So what Jax does to Kinga wouldn't be much of an impact. But then we have Zubul, who is a non-binary character, and the only character who stands up to Jax. And it's a little bit odd how the only character who stands up to Jax is, of course, Zubul. And it's just kind of odd because Zubul is, in my opinion, one of my favorite characters in the show. I feel like they truly have such incredible character development, and it's mainly incredible by how subtle it is. We get a whole subplot in episode 3 about Zubul's insecurities, and mind you, this was just in like a side quest in that episode, but as the show continues, they actually become more like secure, has more of a less of a fragile ego. It's actually really great character development. Even though Zubul has their own problems, they never once take it out on the people around them. Instead, they help lift each other up. Zubul does this mainly with Gangle by always sticking up to Jax when it comes to how badly he treats Gangle, and it's just like Zubul is such a much better person, but they're also a much better character because they actually develop. Jax, however, never once develops in the show. He always goes from point A to B without any sense of growth. He's constantly keep bullying everyone else, and it's just so bad on how it looks because his main targets are in fact women, and the only other characters he doesn't target are non-binary and males. Now, if Jax just bullied the women in the show, that would be one thing, but I feel like another big problem comes with the fact that every single time the women try to like stick up for themselves or try to like fight back against Jax, they're somehow the ones who have to be more apologetic. Like in episode 5, when Ragatha accidentally states that Jax doesn't have any more friends left, and she even yells at him later on in the episode, she straight up apologizes to him, and even Pomni tells Ragatha that maybe you should calm down, even though she just said like 2 minutes ago that you can't act like this sometimes. It's just like the episode tries to frame Ragatha like she was in the wrong, and she's the one who apologizes to Jax for what she said, when Jax never apologized to Ragatha for how badly he used to treat her. But no, Ragatha's the one who has to apologize because that's just who she is. And this clearly has more to do with Ragatha's character than her gender, I understand that. But then we have Gangle in episode 4, where she becomes a manager at a fast food chain, and she straight up becomes extremely controlling. Even though, in my opinion, I don't think Gangle was straight up awful in this episode. She was just trying to like get the job done. Yeah, she was being unhealthy with how she was handling her emotions in this episode, but the way she treated everyone else wasn't that bad. She was just being like any other retail manager. But then we have Jax constantly complaining about how badly Angles is being here. And what's worse is how the episode does portray Gangle like she's in the wrong for being the only time she stands up to Jax. This is when she has her happy face on and she's actually standing up to Jax for how badly he's treating her. But instead, Gangle's the one who's in the wrong for how badly she's treating him here, even though Jax was the one who was bullying her for literal years. But I feel like one of the worst examples of this is in the gun episode, in episode 6, where Pomni like calls Jax out for like being partially responsible for some people getting abstracted for how he behaves. And then Jax says, and I quote, "You don't even know what it's like to see people almost abstract. They're not pleasant to be around." And Pomni does apologize for that, which, okay, she apologizes for that, but Jax was out here emotionally manipulating you for this entire episode, but you're the one who apologizes to him for somehow not understanding his pain. This is just so problematic because all of the female characters in the show, whenever they are in fact defending themselves or when they're actually like sticking up towards Jax, somehow they're the ones who are in the wrong, but not Jax, which is just completely problematic when you actually look at it a lot deeper. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that the Amazing Digital Circus is straight up intentionally trying to be misogynistic. It's like not trying to be explicit on any of this, and I understand that one of the main reasons why he targets a lot of women in the show is because, you know, most of the female characters in the show, like, they are a part of the main cast. So I can in a way understand that, like, Kingo is mentally insane, Zubul is the only one who stands up to Jax. It's just a bit of a bad look when you look a lot deeper into it. And I feel like it also in a way shows that female representation, it's all about quality over quantity. A show can, in my opinion, just have 1 or 2 female main characters that are really well written, and that'll be enough for me. But The way that the show handles Jax's behavior towards its female characters and how it's treated more as a joke than something that's actually disturbing or unserious is completely problematic, especially with how it handles him in the last episode. See, the finale I do have a lot of mixed opinions on. I feel like my number one problem with the finale is how it's basically just a Jax movie. That's basically what it is. We spend like about half an hour of the runtime focusing on Jax and his backstory. And this is such a big red flag for me because he's not even the main character. Like, Jax is not even the protagonist of this show, yet somehow he gets most of the final episode about him and about how he used to be like, especially since like most of it just kind of proved just how awful he was, but also just how badly he treats, like, again, women, because we finally found out what happened between him and Ribbit, and Ribbit is in fact a female. Like, I thought at first that Ribbit was going to be a guy or maybe gender fluid, but no, she's a woman. And yet we get to see how badly he treated her after opening up to her. I get that he has trauma, and I do actually kind of like his upbringing. It does help justify why it doesn't help justify, but it helps explain why he is the way that he is. But seeing how badly he treated Ribbit afterwards, even though she did nothing but be there for him, it's just so bad. And I understand that a lot of people will say that, oh no, but like he was bad to Kaufmo as well. When you compare how badly he treated Ribbit versus how he treated Kaufmo, it's kind of like night and day. After he talks to Ribbit about his feelings, he literally tries to distance himself from Ribbit. Whenever Ribbit wants to team up, he's always hanging out with Kaufmo. He literally talks bad about Ribbit towards Kaufmo, telling him that she's a liar. And when Ribbit does the right thing and tries to confront him about it, she's the one who again apologizes for whatever the heck she did, even though she didn't do anything wrong. Ribbit getting mad at Jax for distancing himself from her is completely valid, because at the end of the day, he was distancing himself from her. He was isolating himself from her. But not just that, he's basically the reason why she abstracted. He completely did the exact thing that she told him she was afraid of. We found out that she moved away from her parents and cut ties with them, and she regrets that, but then Jax is doing the same thing to her right now, and is even causing other members of the circus to do the same thing to her unintentionally. And it's just such a bad look, because why would Jax, like, his four main victims are in fact women. His main target throughout the entire show was in fact Gangle, and in the last episode we do get a really great scene of Gangle apologizing for not being able to cry when Jax abstracts, because Zubo does state, like, why can I not cry for him? It's such a really deep scene that shows that even though Gangle is terrified of Jax, she still straight up resents him still. She still straight up hates him. But then they completely contradict this by having her cry by the end of the episode for him. And it's just so bad, because why are you crying for your bully here? I feel like that the last episode should have given Gangle a scene where she actually calls Jax out on how badly he treated her, and Jax actually listens to what Gangle says. She doesn't have to, like, gain an apology from Jax, but I feel like at the very least she should be able to, like, have one last final conclusion with how badly Jax had treated her. But instead she just feels bad later on in the episode, which just feels completely wrong. And then we have Jax out here giving no proper apology to any of the women he hurts. And this is just such a bad look for the female characters in the show, how badly he treated Ribbit, Ragatha, Gangle, and Pomni. And it's just such a bad look because his main targets are in fact women. And I know that the creator stated that Jax is most likely a transgender, which, okay, but like, does that excuse his behavior any less for how badly he treats other female characters in the show? And the fact that the last episode is even about him, how most of the screen time is dedicated towards him and his backstory, even though we literally learn almost nothing about Pomni, who is the main character, which let's actually talk about. Pomni is supposed to be the main character of the Digital Circus. She's basically the main character of this entire show. Yet we know so little about her, and I honestly thought the last episode would actually focus a lot of time into figuring out more about who she is, what was her upbringing like, and why she is so empathetic, because Pomni has a lot of empathy for the people around her. Like she bonded a lot with an with an NPC in the second episode. But then we don't learn anything about Pomni in the last episode, despite her being the main character. Instead, the entire last episode is dedicated towards Jax and Kane, the other male character in the show. So the fact that the last episode is literally mostly about Jackson Kane and not about Pomni, who is the main character, it's just we still don't know anything about Pomni, so it's still so odd how we know so little about the main character who is a female. And most of the time, Pomni sometimes doesn't even feel like the main character at times because, again, she's basically just everyone's therapist for the entirety of the show. I feel like that Pomni's best episodes were in fact the first 3 episodes, and then afterwards she's helping out everyone else, which is sweet. There's nothing wrong with a main character encouraging and helping other characters out. But the fact that we still don't know anything about her until up to the finale, and instead they just dedicate all of this time on Jax, it's just a bit of a concerning look because, Pomni is a female protagonist and Jax is a male character. But every single time the focus is put on Jax, like, Pomni just feels like she's just the perspective, like we're seeing the show through her perspective towards Jax. And, okay, I'm not saying that the Amazing Digital Circus is intentionally misogynistic. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that the show wants to be misogynistic, but the way that the show handles its characters, mainly with how Jax treats his targets, which are women, and how it's perceived and how it's portrayed, it's just a bit of an off-putting look. And the last episode, if anything, just proved the point even more by how Jax straight up dominates the show and how it's just such a bad look. Maybe I am just overreacting here because I don't know, that's just the feeling I get when I watch the show, when I rewatch the show after watching the final episode, because seeing how badly Jax treated all of the female characters in the show and how there was not even a single female character in the show that he didn't harass, it's just a bit of a bad look here when it comes to how the show handles its characters with its male characters and its female characters, and how Pomni, despite being the protagonist, we know so little about her, and the show instead just shifts all of its attention in its final episode towards Jax. But please tell me what you guys thought about the Amazing Digital Circus' final episode. Was it satisfying to you guys, or do you guys kind of agree with me on how it handles its characters? Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye bye.